This is the newest greedy 5-star character in Honkai Star Rail, SPARXIE, and our team building can go a lot more in depth than you think. Kicking things off for the SPARXIE team building guide, here's the team I'll be referencing as her baseline team. SPARXIE, Yaoguang, Sparkle, Huohuo. This is her premium team, but it still is possible to deviate from it. Her budget team would look more like SPARXIE, Yaoguang, Gallagher, RMC. Genuinely pretty close in strength, even outside of shield environments where the difference will be felt even less. Let's briefly touch on vertical investment routes if you have any in mind. E2S0 SPARXIE is better than E1S1 Yaoguang, which is better than S1 Yaoguang that's greater than or equal to E1 Yaoguang, who's better than S1 SPARXIE. Other considerations like E2 Sparkle or E1 Huohuo are fine if you have them, but I really recommend pursuing them as investments. If you want to know how to play SPARXIE, this outdated 150-second guide is most of what you need to know. I only call it outdated because it was made prior to being able to actually sit down and, theoretically, play. Crit rate or crit damage body, speed boots, and then attack sphere and rope. Speed boots are recommended over attack boots because the speed of AHA scales off of the speed of your Elation teammates, something that also gets affected by in-game speed buffs. That being said, SPARXIE's substat priority should lean more towards crit, speed, attack. Having a fast SPARXIE will not conflict with Sparkle. Yaoguang should be built with a crit rate body, speed boots, energy rope, and then either an HP or defense sphere. Attack is not a stat you need to consider with Yaoguang. Ideal substats are speed and crit rate, heavily leaning in on speed. For running Sparkle, 4-piece Eagle is ideal, but 4-piece Messenger is a fine alternative if the speed is vital to getting AHA an additional turn. The same applies to Huohuo, where a 4-piece Warrior Goddess is ideal, but 4-piece Messenger is okay. If using RMC, then 2-piece Amphorius can actually help you in reaching the speed breakpoint. Otherwise, your standard Lushak or Evanuak picks will do. Yaoguang shouldn't run any planar 2-piece that lacks 5% energy. The only exceptions are if 2-piece Forge or Giant Tree actually provide you with enough speed for AHA to move again. These are compromises you legitimately might have to make if you don't have Yaoguang's signature. Speed thresholds I'd recommend are 134 speed SPARXIE and then 200 speed Yaoguang. This will give AHA about 134 speed, so 2 turns in the first cycle. If you can't hit 200 speed now, don't feel forced to pull for Yaoguang's light cone. AHA's speed formula is one that only becomes more lenient with more Elation teammates. This fact alone makes her light cone a bit like bait at the moment. So with that out of the way, we're going to take our friendly baseline team here and reconstruct it. I'll be making 3 separate tier lists: Sparkle replacements, Huohuo replacements, and Yaoguang replacements. If you're watching this months later, where obviously more Elation characters will be out, a lot of this will obviously be outdated. First up, tier 0 Sparkle replacements. Cypher. If you have Cypher, she's about the best you get at the moment in place of Sparkle. What you'll notice about her and anyone else in T0 is that none of the buffs or debuffs have anti-synergy with whatever will amplify Elation damage. Vulnerability and true damage work perfectly, same with defense down if you're running Resolution or her signature. Cypher is extremely skill point positive, and a smaller benefit is that with her ultimate almost always being full, quid pro quo procs typically can't be wasted on her. There is no action value manipulation at play, but with a 134 speed SPARXIE in play, it's not the biggest loss. RMC. RMC brings crit damage buffs, true damage, and action advance, making her the ideal Sparkle replacement for most players considering they're completely free. You won't be running into skill point problems, and there are some special instances where you can give Mim support to both SPARXIE and Yaoguang at the same time. Tribby. All-type Respin and Vulnerability work perfectly for Elation damage, and Tribby's personal damage can also be buffed by some of the team-wide buffs that the Elation core has. Depending on targets, she can be stronger than Cypher easily. For those with E1 Tribby, so probably a majority, she is easily the best in tier 0 and definitely rivals Sparkle. In T0.5 is Sunday alone. He doesn't quite reach the highs of those in tier 0 due to a large portion of his buffs being completely inaccessible to Elation and not really being a team-wide buffer, but crit and energy are greatly appreciated. You might think that giving energy to Yaoguang is a potential strategy, but remember that the Beatified gives a chunky amount of crit damage that you'd otherwise be losing on SPARXIE. T1 is packed with a bunch of options. Let's speed run through them all. Bronya. The damage bonus from the skill is useless, but still has attack and crit damage buffs through the ultimate. Without E1, she falls further into T1, possibly even to tier 2. Tingyun. Damage bonus on the ultimate is useless, but she gives SPARXIE a juicy attack buff, 20% speed, and obviously the energy that Tingyun is known for. You can actually give the energy to Yaoguang because SPARXIE only misses out on damage bonus, that does nothing for her, and with most of her damage coming from the Elation skill, being able to proc it more often with Yaoguang ults ends up being better. Cyrene. Run Hyacinth. Her biggest strength is providing a free ultimate to Yaoguang, which just trumps anyone else below her by default. Yes, I say Yaoguang and not the team because that's really all that matters. Not to say SPARXIE isn't cool too, but come on. Targeting SPARXIE or Yaoguang with the ultimate is pointless since it gives a useless damage boost, but her true damage is strong anyway. With E2, you can consider her a tier 0 pick. Robin. Team-wide advance is the star here. but Robin does have attack buffs and a weaker crit damage buff. Ultimate uptime is decent enough given the right matchup. E1 is T0.5 level above Sunday with the all-type res pin. Silverwolf, just about the strongest damage amp you're going to be getting, but no real utility otherwise like action advance, more ultimates, and needs to cast skill more than a character like Cypher. Still very strong if you have her. Asta, whoa, a surprise pick. Asta is surprisingly competent as a teammate and should ease the speed requirements quite simply. Fire damage boost is unfortunately worthless, but speed and attack are good for SPARXIE. The rest are cool options that definitely work, just not well enough to be in tier 1. I personally wouldn't recommend using them, especially considering there are plenty of accessible options. Free supports, 4 stars, super popular 5 stars. E1 Rame is tier 1 worthy though. The team-wide speed boosts, res pin, def shred, they're all very helpful. Contrary to popular belief, Sparkle is very replaceable, and the game is not forcing you to pull her for SPARXIE to work. Now, for Huoho replacements. These are a lot more straightforward with one exception. The only tier 0 Huoho replacement is the GOAT himself. Gallagher. Give him quid pro quo and he works just fine. Obviously, losing attack and energy will be noticeable, but it's super manageable due to his skill point positivity. In instances where you can skill, 4-piece Sacerdos will be nice for crit damage. For T0.5, this tier is pretty heavily contested, and that's a good thing. Adventuring, he has comfortable sustainability, skill point positivity, and that one pathetic crit damage debuff, he just works. Bushwen, I bet you never thought you'd see 2 preservation units higher than DHPT. Bushwen has, not gonna call it comfortable, she has sustainability, and the team-wide crit buff that can lower substat requirements on both SPARXIE and Yao Guang. DHPD, Downhung brings skill point positivity and suppressible damage to the table. Well, what about the attack? Well, for some reason, it doesn't work with SPARXIE's attack to elation conversion. This can be observed by looking at how much elation SPARXIE gets with and without Bondmate on her. Still, DHPT is free, and that's enough to keep him here. Hyacine, she should hold massive anti-synergy on paper, but the personal damage still holds up, and Hyacine is still one of the most comfortable sustains in the game. Beyond T0.5, I don't think any of these sustains are actually worth going out of your way to use, but the TLDR is this: quid pro quo, they'll work. And now it's time for the Yao Guang replacements, and oh god. No character in T0, and there's no character in T0.5. Now, before you doom post SPARXIE or Elation because of this, do consider that this is literally like taking Hyacine from Casterus, taking Ceredra from Phynon, Kafka from Hysolins, the Dahlia from Firefly, you get the point. This is just how dedicated supports work. With that being said, T1 starts off with Trippy. T0.5 with E1, not quite Yao Guang level, but you might not even feel a tremendous difference during the SPARXIE shield fights, because that's what shield fights do. Made the content so easy that differences feel less tangible. Cypher, also probably T0.5 with our E1, really close with just the S1. I'll just be repeating what I already said in the Sparkle section about these two, so I won't explain it again. Buffs and debuffs that are accessible to elation damage, stuff like that. T2, which sounds crazy to address as usable options, but that's how things are. Silverwolf, the super strong ant comes in handy here as usual, and having to use skill is a lot less of a concern assuming you have Sparkle on the team now. RMC, the team can feel pretty clunky when it comes to managing Mim's charge and when Sparkle advances SPARXIE, but I won't hold it against RMC because I'm largely assuming optimal gameplay. Overall, similarly to everyone before, these buffs are great for SPARXIE, it's just not enough outside of that. Neither Silverwolf nor RMC have any meaningful vertical that would help them rise a tier. Everyone else is legitimately not worth talking about. They work about how damage amplifiers should, but either clash too much with Sparkle plus the game plan of spamming skills, or they don't give enough useful buffs and debuffs to compensate for the lack of Yao Guang absolutely Yao Guanging all over the place. So, if you're interested in picking up SPARXIE, I would highly recommend Yao Guang, even more than SPARXIE's Eidolons. Obviously, Yao Guang provides a lot of buffs, some are specific to elation, but the key really lies in Aha's speed calculation. Even with E6 SPARXIE, Aha is going from moving 3 to even 4 times a wave, only to 1, unequivocally. And again, SPARXIE's elation skill is her greatest source of damage. This isn't to say E6 SPARXIE is worse than E0 Yao Guang, I just want to paint a picture of what she brings to the table for elation. If you're pulling SPARXIE, enjoy. Waiting for the rest of the beta to see what else changes? Smart move. Bye guys.